Well, let's speak now to journalist Ahmed Shihab Eldin. He joins us from Kuwait City. Thanks very much for coming on to Good Morning Europe. Now, we absolutely want to consider the wider context here, but first of all, given the recent escalation over the last couple of days, what's your view of these events? The UN is warning of a possible full-scale war.
Well, what is the context, Alistair? I'm glad you asked. At the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan, exactly 1 month ago, Israel blocked off access to the Al-Aqsa Mosque for Palestinians and nearby settlers. They were supported by the state, they were also trying to forcibly steal Palestinian homes in Sheikh Jarrah, which is home to 3,000 Palestinians. That would make entire families homeless in a pandemic. So this colonial violence has been happening because both Israel and settlers know that they can act with impunity. The settlers and the horrifying lynch mobs are emboldened by an apartheid state that allows them to carry weapons and assault Palestinians in their neighborhoods. And the state itself is emboldened by an international community that allows massacres, including the murder of children, without facing much, if any, consequence. So, these headlines that say Israel strikes Gaza after Hamas fires rockets are not only offensively reductive, they're intentionally deceptive.
So you're critical of the inevitable reduction of the debate to Israel against Hamas. In terms of the wider assessment of events, you're critical of the international community there as well. What more do you want to see done?
I want to see accountability. I mean, a week ago, Israeli forces and Jewish settlers attacked Al-Aqsa. That's the third holiest site for the world's 1.8 billion Muslims. They wounded hundreds of Palestinian human beings. They used steel bullets coated with rubber. They targeted people praying. They fired tear gas into the mosque, which, as you may know, is a violation of the Hague Convention that demands cultural sites be protected and of which Israel is a signatory. So, when we see images of a fire breaking out at this sacred mosque, shocking footage showing hundreds of Israeli settlers cheering and dancing, basically having a music festival, celebrating as Israel began bombing Gaza, killing at least 62 Palestinians and 14 innocent children murdered by Israel. We see overnight now, an unprecedented attack in cities like Al-Lid. We've seen lynch mobs of Jewish supremacists attacking Palestinian citizens of Israel, and the police actually leading these attacks and making arrests while protecting the settlers. This is the first time, Alistair, as you may know, that these areas go under a state of emergency, marking kind of the first time these powers have been used over Palestinians since 1966. And what's troubling to me when you say, what do I want to see? I want to see accountability. Somehow President Biden and many like him in political and media circles only seem concerned with Israel's right to defend itself without acknowledging Palestinians' right to defend themselves, to live, to basic human dignity.
Just briefly, because we don't have much time, there are moderate voices on both sides calling for the need for a two-state solution, calling for the underlying causes to be addressed, calling for a solution to Jerusalem. But do you think, despite those voices, are things just going in the opposite direction?
Well, yeah, I mean, for too long, I think because the media is focused on false equivalence, violence of the Israeli occupation, these ethnic cleansing policies, which was at the crux of what was happening in Sheikh Jarrah. I mean, to your point, this didn't start this week or last month. It's been happening for decades. And, when you see Attila Somfalvi, a mainstream Israeli TV anchor, inciting genocide against Palestinians, saying there is no impediment to deleting a neighborhood in Gaza, I mean, this is part of a culture perpetrated by the occupation. So as long as Israeli settlers who are supported by the U.S. have the ability to wage an ethnic cleansing campaign. For example, we've seen one video that's gone viral online where one settler flatly told Mun al-Kurd, who lives in Sheikh Jarrah, while she protested at him for stealing his home, if I don't steal it, someone else will. So I guess my question, very briefly to you, is why should Palestinians not have the same right to defend themselves? Why are activist posts being removed from social media? Why is the head of Instagram an Israeli businessman apologizing by blaming the censorship on a technical glitch? There are many more questions we should be asking.
Ahmed Eldin, we're out of time, but thanks very much for your thoughts there, journalist in Kuwait City.